everyone. It's great to see so many familiar faces and a few new faces in the crowd. Really honored to be up here. Can you all hear me? Yeah?
No, not really.
Can you all? Yeah? Okay, I'll speak a little louder. I'm just absolutely thrilled and honored to be up here with these wonderful panelists. Thank you. Oh, thank you so, wow, it's very close. Not used to speaking on stages, used to moving on them, so. But tonight's panel is really a conversation about looking back so that we can look forward. All of the artists on this stage have legacies that we feel have laid the foundation for innovation in the future. And we're going to dig a little bit into that. But before we begin, I just want to have everyone introduce themselves. So yeah, we can just start with Linda.
Hello, everyone. My name is Linda Yudin. I'm the Artistic Director of Viver, Brazil.
Gema, Sandoval, Artistic Director of Danza, Floricanto, USA.
Lula Washington, Artistic Director of Lula Washington Dance Theater.
Dwight Rhoden, the Artistic Director of Complexions Contemporary Ballet.
We are tweeting, as you can see, at hashtag LA Stage Talks. So if you have questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, reactions, we encourage you to share and tweet at these folks, or tweet at me, tweet at LA Stage Alliance. Is it at LA Stage Alliance? Is that the Danny? At LA Stage Alliance, okay, great. Or at DRCLA, that's our. So we always like to have these lively Twitter feeds going on at the same time that our panels are happening. These simultaneous conversations are always super engaging. So feel free to do that, and I will actually be checking that hashtag. So if there are any questions that come up during the Q&A that I think are really exciting or interesting, I might pick them out and read those in addition to the ones that you are all asking. I also want to say that on behalf of Terrence McFarland, CEO of LA Stage Alliance, he wishes that he could be here moderating this panel, but he's on the East Coast, so he'll have to catch it on YouTube. Yeah, so I think we can begin. I will also have my phone here just to keep an eye on time. I'm not checking my emails or anything. Don't be offended. So I think we can just begin in a pretty informal way. I'll just throw the questions out there. Whoever feels like speaking up first can. We don't have to necessarily go in order. I'm sure all of you have very exciting and engaging answers to all these questions. So, yeah. So I'm going to ask everyone to kind of take a moment and think about your own introductions to dance, to the form, to that moment that you felt in the studio, wherever that first moment was that sparked your passion and your interest and gave you the sense that this would be your future. And you have all dedicated your lives in a really significant way to making this your future. So, I'm
sorry, it's really hard to hear the last part because it kind of trails out.
Oh, okay.
I didn't really hear everything you said
Oh, okay.
first. Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah. So which training styles, ideologies, practices, and even politics sparked your passion? And how did these influences inform your artistic practice? Anyone?
Why y'all looking down here?
Did you all hear?
I could hear that.
Oh, yeah. Okay, great.
Who's going to start?
Anyone can start. Fearless. Be fearless.
Okay, I'll start. In the 8th grade, Bella Lewitsky's dance company came to my town, Danville, Illinois, a town of about 40,000 people. And I was absolutely swept away by that experience of seeing Bella Lewitsky. It was only years later that I realized that it was Bela Lewitsky's company that had influenced me in the 8th grade when my mother took me to our high school's auditorium, because that was the only stage in this small town in Illinois. Years later, at the University of Illinois, Pearl Primus came to perform, and that absolutely changed my entire life. The night after the performance, I ran to a newsstand to find out where I could study dance anthropology, and found that I was going to someday do that at UCLA. Years later, and at UCLA, Brazil found me when a Brazilian folkloric company came from Salvador, Bahia, sponsored by the Bahia Tursa, which is the state tourist agency. Bahia Tursa was coming to the United States to promote tourism and to encourage those to bring the tourist dollar to Salvador, Bahia. And I was doing my graduate work there, was taking a course at UCLA called Dance in Latin America that was taught by Susan Cash, and I found out that semester, that quarter, that this company was coming. When I saw them dance their first choreography of Orisha dance movement, my life changed once again, and 3 months later, I found myself in Salvador, Bahia, completely embraced by Afro-Brazilian dance, culture, people, movement, gincard, swing, Portuguese. So I thank the Orishas deeply for coming to Los Angeles in 1986 and swept me away to Salvador, Bahia, and that has informed everything that I do about dance in Los Angeles and in the world today.
I guess I'll go next. First of all, I have to always remember that we should celebrate those that came before us. And a very important name was mentioned here, and none of us did that. I'm still waiting for you all to celebrate Bela Lewitsky. She was a very powerful dance force. So if you're going to look back, we need to remember all of those energies that were so important in building this city in terms of dance. And Bela certainly was a name not only for Los Angeles, but nationally and internationally known for her work. So I guess my inspiration came when I went to UCLA to see the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. And that was the first time I realized that this is something that I could do. It was a life-changing event. And at that time, I had never been to a dance class ever, because my family, there were 8 of us, and we didn't have a lot of money, and I didn't do ballet on Saturday mornings. I didn't know anything about a dance class. But once my wonderful dance teacher, and that's what's so wonderful about everybody up here, we're all inspiring and motivating others. And so she took us in her car, her, bug, Volkswagen, to see Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. And so seeing all of those wonderful dancers on stage gave me the inspiration to say, oh, that's something possible that I can do. Because as an African-American, a person of color, I had never seen anyone as dark as me dancing on the stage. I might have seen 1 or 2 people, men mostly, on television back then in the day, but never any women. And so the power of that show really at UCLA changed my whole view about what I wanted to do. And it was later on in life that I got more into dancing, and I've always wanted to give back, so part of what I do now is still do that. So everything I said I wanted to do at the time I said this is what I wanted to do, I've been doing. And actually have met a lot of wonderful people along the way. And all of them are sitting here.
Okay.
You said ladies first, no?
Okay. I'll talk a little bit about my beginning and how I was introduced to dance. I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Dayton, Ohio. And I was really just a social dancer. I came to dance when I was 18 years old. It was the first time I even really discovered it. But at the time, what I did was we used to have dance contests all the time. high school dance contests. And basically I was making up these elaborate routines and coming up with, these scenarios and theatrical productions. They became too big so that the coordinator sometimes at the high school dance would be like, Dwight, that's way too much. It's just supposed to be a dance contest. So at the time, I had no idea, except my sisters. I have 4 sisters, and they all took ballet, but I didn't really even, I was the only boy. I didn't pay attention to what they were doing. And they were taking ballet classes from time to time, but it wasn't very serious in my mind. And I had no idea that you could have a life doing this. All I knew is I loved to dance. I didn't know the word choreography, but again, I had been kind of doing it all along, making up these crazy things. So there was a young lady she's still dancing actually at this company. There's a wonderful company in Dayton, Ohio, Dayton Contemporary Dance Company, that was started by someone that trained me, Geraldine Blunden. She's an amazing force, and I think they've been to LA, this company.
Yeah, they're very dear friends of ours, yeah.
Yeah, and basically one of the girls who was my friend said to me, hey Dwight, why don't you come over and see, she was a professional dancer, the company was amazing at that time, but they were all women. And at the same time, simultaneously, as she asked me to come over and view a real dance class, Geraldine, because they had no men, recruited football players from some of the high schools. So when I was young, I was very, very thin and very, very bony. And I came in with about 7 football players, and then there was me. So I saw this room full of disciplined, first of all, gorgeous girls who were just unbelievable dancers. The focus, the concentration, all of that I had never experienced. I didn't know what that was. Now, I was a musician who didn't have much focus. I played about 4 different instruments and never could stick to one. It just never stuck. I love music, but I really like to move to it more than anything else. So I was hooked immediately once I got in that room, and I was lucky enough to have people who cared about and thought that I had some level of talent, just really encourage me to continue. And then there were also the ones who were like, well, you're 18, I don't know, it's kind of late for you, I'm not sure you're gonna make it. But I mean, from that day forward, I trained like a crazy person. I really was hung up on dance. And then I also thought, once I learned what the word choreography was, I thought, oh, I can do that too. I was a very impetuous young guy with no sense of boundaries and really just thought I could do anything. And ignorance was good for me because it allowed me to pursue my dreams at that time, and I really didn't look back. So the short story is I went on to train, got into many different companies along the way, and choreographed the entire time. But I was always, always in it to work with people. I think the reason I do what I do now is, again, it's still the same thing. It's because of the people. That's why it's very important for me to work with people I like, and people that I'm inspired by, and people who bring me something, and hopefully I can give them something back. And to this day, my company, which is made up of 14 dancers at this point, Desmond Richardson and I co-directed, we still look for the person. And we look for the person that's inside that gorgeous body who can do all these magnificent things, but we really are inspired by the people. In a big way, I think that Desmond and I are educators. I know that I love to choreograph and create works, and I have ideas, and I hope I have some vision. But one of the things that I like to do the most is connect with people on the floor through movement, and that is what has brought me here, with a company for 20 years now, but also has brought me through a career that I'm still being inspired by people and artists and ideas, and I think that's why I do what I do.
Great. Emma, turn it over to you.
I started dancing, my mother says, when I was about 3 years old in my tianita's quinceañera. And so I did not know that I was dancing. I just really thought the balloon was beautiful, and went on from there. Then, when I was in college, I was passing by the PE building at Cal State LA, and I heard Mexican music. This was the 60s. And that seemed like a real dichotomy. College, Mexican music, wow. So I went to see what it was, and I found a man called Emilio Pulido, who was a pioneer in Mexican folk dance, and he taught all the way from San Diego, all the way to Santa Barbara on any given week. He was teaching in the universities. And I could not believe that such a class existed in the university, because up to that point, I had found success in school and everywhere else by not being Mexican. And so all of a sudden, it was being celebrated that I was. So I never looked back. After that point, I was in class. His class was once a week. I met my husband there. And I sort of followed him wherever he was, USC, UCLA, Cal State LA, took the classes from him. He was the only one you could take classes from. So that's the person that I took classes from. And what I found most enthralling about it was the ability for dance to create community. And I have to refer back to the fact that I was a Mexican in the 60s. And that meant that the whiter you were, the easier you blended, and the less Mexican you were. And therefore, community did not exist in the same way that it does now. And for me, it was a way to find myself in the most intimate way that doesn't make any difference now, because Mexicans are everywhere. But in those days, we couldn't find each other. And if we did, we pretended we weren't. I have a friend, a very good friend, who just barely recognized that she had an Anglo last name by coincidence, but both her parents are Mexican, and just barely acknowledged it. She's lighter than I am. So it's a disease that goes back a long way, and you only understand it if you are part of it. And there's nothing you can do about it. So it has always been a way to recognize community, but not only that, it has the ability, dance does, to create community. And that's what it did for me. It created community on a variety of levels. And although I always understood that I danced well, that I was a good dancer, that I was a good teacher, and we had the fortune of being able to travel and tour. Bella Lewitsky lent us her bus, and we went in the little black bug, or the big black bug, all over the country doing this. It was always for me about community, because wherever we performed, people would come up to us and say, "Are you really Mexican?" Because that was the big thing. And then the other thing was, "Are you really Mexican from here?" Because there have always been Ballet Folclóricos, but they came and then they left. But we were actually the only group that they knew at that time that was on that stage, but were not gardeners or maids or doing any kind of manual labor, but actually had permission to be on the stage doing their cultural traditions. So for me, it was a very important thing, and I never separated in terms of, am I a dancer? That's been a later thing, in a more, a recent thing, because there's all sorts of Mexican folk dance now, and you have to differentiate what kind of Mexican folk dance you do. In the time when I knew all this, it was the way that you found out who you were, and along that path, you were a Mexican dancer.
Incredible stories. Thank you. So I had this beautiful trajectory planned with the questions, but I'm just going to skip ahead because it seems like we're going in this direction. You are all working or involved on some level with community outreach, education, community building efforts through dance, and Gema, you touched on this, but can we talk a little bit about what makes dance as a form so powerful in affecting personal, interpersonal, political, and community-wide transformation? I think you all probably have really unique answers and, yeah, experiences.
You want me to begin?
Sure.
Okay. At the time when we began here in Los Angeles, we had what it was called the East LA blowouts. And what it was the educational system for the then Chicano young people was atrocious. And so from 3 different high schools in the East Side, Roosevelt, Garfield, and Wilson, they walked out. The demands for the young people to come back were, among the many other things, educational things, were to have folklorico in those schools, in those classes. By the way, there are no folkloricos in those schools anymore, just as a sideline. And the young man, then the young teacher that led these walkouts, his name was Sal Castro. Simultaneously, Floricanto was beginning to take its first baby steps. So what I thought was, what best thing but to have Sal Castro come and speak to us. So he came to talk to Floricanto, because what we needed was to have permission to exist. But a horrible thing to say, but he gave us permission. And so the political impetus for us was that we had a right to be artists in our community, and we needed to find the strength to be that. So we never forgot that, and so even today, the reason Floricanto exists is a political statement still. And just going a little bit into the future, it was never enough for me to do Mexican dance. We now do Chicano dance because it is important that we give ourselves permission to be who we are here, not in our mother country, not in the imagination of our grandparents, but as we are today. That we haven't found an audience is irrelevant. We need to continue being true to ourselves.
Well, I think, yeah.
We can clap. We don't have to continue clapping.
I think we exist because there's a need. My dance company was started because there was a void. In my mind, there was a void, and there were very few opportunities for dancers that were black dancers, then we were called black dancers, to perform concert modern dance. Either you had to be on the AAA list and be already have arrived, but there was no place for you to actually, or a place that would accept you for who you are, even in college. Because as a student in college, my UCLA college, we had to deal with the issue of creating work based on our experiences versus, I don't have nothing against classical music, but that wasn't my thing back then in college. I needed to create something to Aretha Franklin or somebody else, So there were cultural issues. My whole thought process was that there's something that the world can learn from me, as well as things that I can learn from the world. The world then being the university and me. There's a two-way give in everything. So because there was this empty void in my mind, I started to create my own works. I started to say, well, if I can't perform on your show, then I'll find another show that I can perform on. Or, write a grant and get some money to do it ourselves and start our own shows. Find a place to perform ourselves. So in doing that, what I found was, the politics of it was, in school, you had to write a grant, get money. Outside of school, you got to write a grant and get money. So it's the same thing. But the difficulties of it was that it was very few dollars allocated to companies that were the West Coast with no-name people, because the powers that be that are in the concert modern world are looking for the, quote, high-profile names to support. And it's still to this day, but I'll give some credit because over the years it has changed quite a bit, so that there were programs that were created for Gema's company, for my company. I forgot what they called us then, Minority Cultural Arts or something, funding. They came up with names then.
Yeah, we did.
But still today, we have to do what we believe is the truth, to speak to our hearts that represent our people, my community. My community is a global community, and it's global because the same things that's concerned with African American community is concerned about in Egypt, in Taiwan, anywhere. If it's dealing with the women's issue over there, it's dealing with the women's issue over here. And so themes and issues have always been a part of what I do, and it doesn't necessarily mean that I have intentionally tried to be political about something, but for me it was about the injustices and not being able to have a voice, and I found that in the art, you create your voice. You're able to put your voice on stage, and other people can connect to your voice, and you can find meaning, and you can find your self-healing, your self-worth is found in that. And you're also educating people to the value of who you are and what you do and why you exist. And you don't have to care if they like it or not. Because in that is your strength. In doing what you do is your strength. In continuing to exist. And that's why I'm so happy to be here with Gema, because Gema and I met a long time ago. We didn't know each other. They had something called the California Arts Council. They used to have these panels, and you go up there and decide who's going to get some money, I didn't know Gema, she didn't know me, but the thing that we discovered was we're about honesty and fairness. And I knew then that if I was going to survive politically or any other kind of way, I needed an ally. So then the concept of building communities, for me, meant building relationships with other professional artists throughout the state and trying to get them to know. So I would send notes to her and whoever was on the panel saying, look, we're doing this, that, and the other. If you can come, fine. If you can't come, at least you know we're doing something. Because that is the world that we live in. Did you get a good review? Well, I don't care about the review anymore, honestly. Because really, really, a review can give you a heart attack. A review can change the color of your hair. I've seen reviewers that have seriously destroyed people's self-worth. And to me, it's not worth that. It's about my believing in myself, what my worth is, and my having faith that what I'm doing is of value and true. And doing it, irregardless of what people say about it, because they're not feeding me, I'm feeding me. And the people that come to see the work and send me a note or see me in the shopping market and say, I saw your work. Are you still doing that piece? No, we did that like 15 years ago. When are you going to do it again? You know what I'm saying? That's the power of art, Or some little kid that comes and mama brings him to see your show, and they see a piece. I have a piece called What About Watts, which was about gangs, but which I honestly created as a healing tool for myself because my nephew, who was 12, was, shot. And part of how I dealt with it was creating a piece. And this mother brought her son who was yelling and screaming, he didn't want to come, and at the end of the show, she said, thank you. My son says that this was such a meaningful, that's the joy of it. It don't matter what other people say. It only matters like what people say that see the work say, And unfortunately, it may not mean that you might get the big dollars in the grant because somebody's opinion of your work is one-sided. We have to look beyond that and say, this too will come to pass. And we have to, move forward with that energy, with that strength.
Yeah.
Yes, we should always celebrate ourselves. That's the other thing I've learned. Too many times us in dance, we don't celebrate ourselves. We don't pat ourselves on the back for things that we do. We go to things and we don't say, wow. We don't come up to our peers and say, that was wonderful. That was wonderful. And we need to do that as a community, the dance community. That's what community is about. Not just me being over there with where I am and Dwight being where he is. Yes, Dwight. I'm getting the old child. But I'm just saying, that's community. And so I get great value and joy out of the fact that, I have a studio. We lucked up and got a great space. But guess what? In that space, Louise is rehearsed there.
Viver Brasil
Viver
rehearses there on a
Brazil has
regular
rehearsed there.
basis. It's our home.
So many people have had opportunity, and we're able to give back that way. You know, we may not can give back in the way that they always want us to, but we've created a community on the Crenshaw and Coliseum, you know, where there's art happening and there's dance happening. And today, our two companies rehearsed in our space. You know, wow. I tweeted, wow. We, Lula LDT and LWDT and Complexions Dance Theater, we are in rehearsals today, you know, together, you know, and it doesn't matter what anybody else has to say about it. We're there in the same room, sweating and working it out. So it's about, that's the community, and the community has to be strong. Deborah is community. Deborah danced with my company. I am so proud every time I see that Deborah has taken the challenge and gone out to do her own thing, to have her own space, to be in this arena, you know, because that's what it's about. And then in this community, we've all shared, well, pretty much, maybe not Dwight, but lighting design. You know, from my sister over here, I call her my Caucasian sister, you know, she might not like it. But we've always, you know, so we are sharing resources together. And, you know, so that's community. And then these two nice people that we met because we all shared a passion for Obama, you know, and we came, you know, and she said, and I didn't really know her, but she said, look, we're doing this. And I'm like, well, I don't really know them, but we should go and do what we can to support that. So in the issues become friendships and relationships that, you know, we can nurture and develop. And as a result of that, she's letting me know when they're doing things. And that's a good thing, because we all need to know when we're doing things. So when we have a free moment, we can go and say, hey, I saw your show. It's fabulous, you know. You know, and so we met this young lady here through Deborah Bacchus, you know. So, and she's new on the scene. She's the baby on the block. Yeah. It's good to be the baby on the block. Yeah. But, you know, this is community. Supporting and nurturing ourselves is where we have to start. But in doing that, I have to say that there's a lot more that we have to do collectively in terms of change the political scene in our community in terms of funding for the arts. Yeah. You know.
Great.
We always have to give us claps because we don't get a lot of dollars. You know? Y'all can give us a lot of claps.
Somebody tweet that, please.
That was great, Lula.
Thank you.
I'm like all wrapped up in what you just said. I think, you know, I'll say exactly what happened today between Lula and Complexions is kind of the thing that Desmond and I are all about in a way. We started a company that celebrates multiculturalism. We started a company that is about fusion, is about celebrating the differences. Looking at them, and probably you can look at me and know that I'm kind of a melange of many, many different things. My family is very, very mixed, I should say. I grew up with with all kinds of traditions around me. So I think in many ways I didn't really know what I was doing when I started to put this together, and Desmond and I shared the vision of wanting to see, you know, seemingly different things work together in a harmonious way in the same setting. We wanted to see the counterpoint. We wanted to see, we thought that showed the beauty of our differences. And so what Complexions is about is that, and what we try to do with everything that we do, whether it's the show itself, whether it's our education programs with the young people, is we are really about celebrating those kinds of beautiful differences. And I don't know that, you know, I agree with Lula in a way that there still needs to be more. All the bridges that we need to build have not been built yet. We've made some progress. We are making progress, but I agree with you that we are not there yet. And the arts is, to me, it is the defining factor in making those bridges, quite frankly, because that's where the heart is, in my opinion, and that's how we can actually make those bridges. I don't want to say, I'm not trying to be, talk about only artists can do that, but I think that is when you can get results. Maybe not even immediately, but through example, by watching, by hearing, by seeing, by feeling. And in performance, so I always tell my dancers, they'll never be able to replace live performance.
Never.
That'll never go away. The connection between this stage and the audience there, I don't care how much technology we come upon, the idea of the energy, the exchange, the impact that you can have, the power that performers and or artists have, not just dancers, but all artists, that power of connecting is beyond. It's such a special thing. And that way we will never lose this. I tell the dancers, I told them today, look, you have an obligation. We're here, not even Los Angeles, we're here in the studio, Lula studio, rehearsing. We have an obligation. There's been a design made for you, there's music playing, and we will have an audience on Saturday. So let's get ready, number one. However, there's an obligation to give of yourself. And that is what we try to promote. Generous people. Because that translates, and it transports the people who are sitting in the seats. Then that goes out into the world. You guys walk away with an inspiration, hopefully, or an idea, a new perspective, a discovery, maybe a feeling, maybe even you walk away with something that doesn't feel so good. But what you do is you walk away and then it spreads. And that's why I think that, what we do is so important. But again, like you said, we're not done.
Exactly.
I don't know.
So, Afro-Brazilian dance completely transformed me and transformed my entire life. And when I arrived in Salvador Bahia in August 1986, I was so incredibly embraced by every teacher, by every artist, by every person that I was introduced to. And I knew then, coming back in 1987, I had a gigantic responsibility to share everything that had been given to me. And it was about Black dance. It was about an African diasporic dance form, and that has been the politic of Viver Brazil and my entire life since 1986, is that what we do is coming from an African place, it's coming from a Brazilian place, and it's also being, and what's also totally incredible is that we're able to develop this particular African diasporic dance form in Los Angeles. And the company looks like the city that we live in. We're multicultural, sometimes we're white, sometimes we're Jewish, sometimes we're biracial, we're Black. It's always been an issue that either Viver Brazil, for example, sometimes isn't dark enough, brown enough, multicultural enough. You're not folkloric enough, you're not contemporary enough, but we've managed to just celebrate our 15th anniversary, and that's very exciting. And I do believe that what we express now is this 21st century expression of Afro-Brazilian dance theater. And everything that we do that is either on stage or in our community engagement programs and with kids is about understanding who you are as a person, and that Afro-Brazilian dance, this concept that we live on this earth and that there is this cosmic world that we live in, can transform you. And that Orixá dance can do that Samba dance can do that a processional can do that a capoeira move can do that. I have to tell you, we did a residency at UNC Charlotte. We were there for 2 weeks in the mid-90s. We performed at very many different places. And at the time, actually, we didn't take the company. It was just my husband, Badaro, and I, with students from UNC Charlotte. We did a lot of work in the elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools because, as many of you may know, in North Carolina, that dance is a mandated discipline. So we were in an elementary school in a 5th grade classroom, we had just finished an Orisha dance movement class, and we had a question and answer period. I showed them the map, and this one young African-American girl kept looking at Padrão, and she said, "You know, I'm black. Are you black too? Because you don't speak my language, but you speak my dance language."
Wow.
And she went up to touch him and hugged him, and there was this moment of absolute bliss that from Africa to Brazil to North Carolina and back to Los Angeles, we made a connection. And that was so telling of the kind of work that I've wanted to do ever since 1987 when I came back. Like I said, a giant responsibility as a white Jewish woman who was not born into this culture. I have had a divination ceremony to find, and found out that it was in my destiny to have this other experience. And I truly believe that in that kind of destiny. But there's this huge responsibility that I, as the artistic director, that is not from Brazilian, that was not born into Brazilian culture, to bring this entire body of incredible knowledge. Of course, everyone in Brazil says to me, "You always forget, Linda, that Afro-Brazilian culture is a microcosm here, that down in southern Brazil, nobody really is paying too much attention to this vast body of Afro-Brazilian dance work." But to me, Brazil is black. It's all about blackness, and Brazilian dance is all about this particular body politic that has this particular corporal sensibility. And Katiana Pale, one of our muses of the company, is in the audience, and she knows how crazy I am about understanding that we don't have to look like Nildinha Fonseca of the Ballet Folclórico da Bahia, but there has to be a sensibility of this rich tradition, this ancient tradition. We have to pay homage to that in our bodies and in everything that we do in terms of creating community. When we're at Lula's studio, it's so stupendous, actually. To see many of her students peer into our rehearsal space to see what on earth this other group of, for the most part, or this other group of dancers are doing that speaks to them as well. So, like I said, there's a huge responsibility in making sure that we're having these transformative experiences, and that that our audiences understand this sense of community. And that's, I think that's what this is all about for all of us, is that we really understand that we're connecting on so many levels with each other.
Great.
Eileen is going to kindly give me a cough drop.
Cough drop pause.
We also have water underneath all the seats, so if you want water.
Yeah, it's not water.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yay!
Okay.
Good. So you've all spoken a little bit about kind of the forms you inherited and the politics you stepped into. Can you speak a little bit about how you have innovated and hybridized and pushed the boundaries, and maybe how those boundaries are naturally dissolving or being pushed on their own by your students or the people you work with? Yeah. It's kind of a big, broad question, but yeah.
I'm going to start again.
Sure. Hey, yeah,
Okay.
why not? You got the cough drop.
Yeah, I got the cough drop. Folklorico in the last 15 years or so has developed two different branches, if you will. One is the very traditional that attempts to retain as much of the mother source as possible and not to be too hybridized into the very many influences that it can. And that's the tradition that I follow. There is more of an endurance training than ballet or contemporary training, if you will, with that. Alongside with this have been the very many young people that have come in, having been trained by the Amalia Hernández Folclórico de Mexico folks, and they come in with a lot of ballet training, contemporary training, and therefore dance a more, quote-unquote, acceptable folklorico, because they look much more like the other European-based dance forms that exist. And so therefore, on stage, they probably have a bigger appeal. But the problem that I see, and so I have fought not to go there, is that they say that they are folklorico, and that's not what they are. They are folk-based, folk-influenced, but not folklorico anymore. And if you are attempting to keep a culture as pure as you can to the source so that you can pass on to your children and to your grandchildren what the mother source had, then you really have to fight for that integrity and that authenticity. If, however, the purpose of the company is to do some wonderful productions that are very appealing and that have commercial value, then that's another thing. The problem with audiences is that they don't know the difference from one to the other, and they just embrace what is put before them. So I think that this has a great deal to do with presenters and the job they need to do in order to show the differences. That's one thing that I think is important in terms of what you show the young people that you are in charge of. In my personal aesthetic, what I have found that has really influenced me over the last 7-8 years is what is known as African-influenced fandango dancing. And that comes from the state of Veracruz. And when I first heard it, it was an epiphany that changed my life and really took me off my socks for the longest time, because all of the Mexican folk dance is very square. 4/8s, 8/16s, 16/32s, and you can just choreograph and do everything very precisely, and it fits very perfectly, and there are no loose ends or little tails that you need to do something with at the end of the music. And there is no improvisation in this kind of dancing. It's all very prescribed, and it is done in 90% of Mexico, whether it be Amalia Hernández based or the more traditional. And then you have the Veracruz influence that is totally improvisational. The songs that I thought I knew, that I understood, and that I heard in my ears and that I understood in my head don't make any sense, because everything about it is improvisational, and even the melody only has a little taste of what the melody that I understood. So when I first heard it, I thought, oh my God, I've been teaching the wrong thing all these many years. What am I going to do? Once I got over myself on that end, I began to try to learn it, to be able to teach that. And I am now on the 10th year of that path. But once I learned how to do it, the footwork is amazing, and it has the improvisational quality of any drum, or it's got more of a tapping quality rather than footwork. And it has the ability to be very simple and very gentle. So in terms of creating community, it is awesome, because we could stand right here, and in 10 minutes I would teach you the 3 basic steps, and you would be able to join in this tarima or platform that we would all join and dance together. But at the same time, it has the complexity that it will take you years to master all the way through the town. I am on that path. I probably will die before I get to the end of that path. But it has made me happy all over again, because I have found dance that I still don't understand and that I'm striving to get better to, and to be able to perform. And it has become the language for my Chicano dance, because it speaks to hip hop, to bebop, to all the many dances that are, and when you play anything that is of that ilk, I can do zapateado to it now. I never could before, because I understand the rhythms that are going on in there, and so that is my transformational thing that has happened to us. And I really believe that I am in the beginning of something, because most Chicano Latino communities are really moving in that direction. Not the dance folklorico world, it's really fighting it, but everybody else is. You have fandangos going on every weekend in my community. So that's my transformation.
Great.
I guess for me, first of all, this is probably going to get me in trouble, but I don't like the word innovation, really. To me, it's what are you doing and how are you making it a reality, and who is it reaching? And I think that word is created as a process of eliminating so many artists. Oh, well, that's not innovative enough. Well, if you are creating work that speaks to a community, that's bringing a body of community into a theater that never had them, then you are being, that word that I don't like to use, you are bringing them in. So it's like how you choose to use the words that are thrown upon us, and we have to respond to. I mean, every grant, how are you innovative? What are you doing? Why? That's not getting me the money. That's not helping the presenter that I'm going to. What's helping the presenter that we're going to is getting the people into the seats and the work that's speaking to them. That's what it is. So to me, it shouldn't be about that. And then saying all that, I try to explore all aspects of African American history and culture. And I do that because I realize that I haven't been taught all of the truth. And still, I will probably go to my grave not knowing all the truth about African American history and culture, but I'm finding that in dance and my desire to know more, I'm finding the connections between Mexico and the Latin countries, Brazil, the Caribbean. The connections are there. And so much of what is happening in today's society is because of the greater ignorance that is out there, and people not teaching our children and informing themselves about the real deal. The real deal, whether you go with me or not, it's okay, is Africa. Africans were taken all over the world, and I say this in my educational program. There's that influence. You can see it. You can feel the pulse. It's there. And whether we want to acknowledge that or not, well, that's another thing. But in reality, it is the truth. And the more we study individually ourselves, we start to see that influence. And we see, oh, why? Oh, why does that samba step look like that? Oh, well, there's a history to that step. You dig deep, you see what that history is. Now, whether or not that samba step, the commercialness of that samba step is really going to say the truth of where it came from, that's another whole story. But it's important that I have that connection. I'm learning that connection. Him and I have talked about doing works together, like what we're doing, but we haven't gotten around to it yet. But we've been talking about it. And so I started to listen to Ozomatli. Mm-hmm. And I'm hearing African rhythms in Ozomatli, and I'm like, wait a minute, that sounds, yeah, yeah. So yeah. So, I've started with experimenting and exploring those rhythms and putting it into the dancers' bodies. And then I saw a piece that you did years ago at a Christmas show, and your dancers was doing this. I was like, wait a minute. It was a duet. There was a quartet, something that dances around. And I was like, that movement looks real familiar. I know that language. So, I mean, so we have these deep connections. But going back to what Dwight was saying, that we are the ones, I don't know, I've heard this. I think I went to Jacob's Pillow and we were saying, we're the ones the world is waiting for. Dance. Dancers are the ones, because we're the ones that are going to change the perception of the world and of who we are individually and what we do. So how we look at ourselves, what we want to see for ourselves. We needed a place to be. We needed stability. How can you be stable if you got to go? Well, this is us in the beginning. One night we're over here rehearsing, 2 nights later we're over there rehearsing, then another night we're down on Beaudry in the dungeon rehearsing. You know, you have to have stability to be able to create your art. Why don't the funders get that and understand that? So when people ask for money to get a space, they should have it, because it's not going to be a space that's just for them. It's going to be a space for the community around them. Even him, I was so happy when she got her space. And then you know what she just told me? She just shared with me, so many people have been coming to me to use my space because they didn't have a space. Well, look at the additional community that's been added because she has a space. So, you know, there's value to that. There's value to, and she has her space. Do you own it yet? You're working on owning it. Yeah, and him was working on owning hers. Artists should own our space, you know. And people say, well, you're artists. Why do you need to own something? Well, if you don't own it, whoever gets tired of having you there, you can't pay the money, they're just going to kick you out. So, you know, why should we stay and struggle in a place that we cannot say, this is our home? This is our home. So now we have our home. And now we have people say, why do you do this? Well, we needed a home. In building the home, our school has stability. In building that, our neighbors, meaning our dance neighbors, have a place that's locally that they can come to rehearse. In doing that, we have young up-and-coming youth choreographers that can experience the real art of dance. They can come and see informal showcases. There's so much opportunity there. So I would say that the real innovation should come from presenters too, and funders should change their perception of the concept of dance and its value to the community, and understand that the dollars that you give to us are going to go so much further than it is to just, you know, yeah, we need work to create pieces too, but we need it all, and they need to understand that it's, yeah, we can't come to you and say, okay, give me money for the building, but then you can also give me some money for my piece. But don't try to tell me, okay, well, we're not going to give you the money for the piece because you stuck in something about the building. You know, that's like cutting your hand off. You know, it's a pendulum. Who wants to work like that? But we have all had to function like that. So the reality is we want to be more in all that we can be, like they say with the Navy, all that we can be, but we can't do that. And not even the younger choreographers can do it, you know. They can't do it either. And then we want to pay our artists. You know, some people, why do they need to make that much? Well, that's not a lot of money. They need to be paid so they can have dignity, so they can go to the dentist, you know? They can go get an x-ray or whatever. So it's about building the community that can support the artists that we're trying to bring up under that umbrella. And we can't do it unless, again, our community is strong. We're speaking with one voice, not, well, she got all that over there, she don't need nothing. Well, okay, well, no, she got the grant last time. Give us all the money, really. Give it to us. Give it to us.
The community is the innovation. Yeah.
Go ahead.
How have we innovated? I think that the market has really encouraged us to innovate. Afro-Brazilian dance is quite a small niche market. And it is very competitive. And Viver Brasil had to set itself apart from the other 2 touring companies that are dear friends of ours, Ballet Folclórico da Bahia and Dance Brasil. João Vieira is a very dear, dear friend, and we're hoping at some point that he will contribute choreography to our company. And we have actually had guest artists from the Ballet Folclórico da Bahia perform with Viver Brasil. But our elders, we do deep research. We do very deep research with our elders and also the virtuosic choreographers and musicians in Salvador, Bahia. And I think that they too have encouraged us to be very innovative. And this last show that we just performed here 2 weeks ago, I think is a great example of how we unmasked all of our traditional material, We were often, for many years, influenced by this, what Emilia Biancardi, who's a very important folklorist in Brazil, called the rice and beans show, which is a very square model of presenting choreography that displays the orixá dance movement and the ceremony of the candomblé, a choreography with traditional samba de roda, a display of capoeira, and a display of carnival forms. And that has worked for us for many years. But I would say that as we began to perform here at our home theater, the Ford, we began to look at how influenced we are by the language itself. And not by the tradition, but by the language and the many ways that we could be innovative with those particular dance languages. And I think that this last show that we just premiered, Intersections Age, which means the wealth or the roads to prosperity, is really about celebrating this artistry that we have cultivated here in Los Angeles. And I'm proud to say that we took a piece by Rosângela Silvestri, who's been very influential in our training. She has created a Brazilian modern dance technique called the Silvestri technique, and she has done many choreographies for the company. This year we said we want to look at a traditional piece that she had created for us and unmask it, take the orixá costume out, take the crown away, and use the story, a traditional orisha story, but create it just the way you want to create it, Rosângela. Make it as contemporary as you want, but really use the language and the technique and the technical prowess of the dancers, and not so much about the ceremony. We had the pleasure of inviting Amy Cat Fox Campion to do a piece that was inspired by capoeira dance language, and it was very exciting because it was really our foray into working with performance art and the language of capoeira and Amy's dynamism with street dance, and it was, for us, it was a breakthrough moment. And this year, we invited company members to choreograph, and that was, for me, absolutely one of the highlights of this world premiere, was that we've cultivated over the past 15 years an incredibly talented group of dancers and musicians, and it's time for them to, and we felt that it was time for them to really show their incredible choreographic skills. And so I think that the market also has influenced, it's a competitive market out there. We innovated by not having men in the company for some reason. I mean, I would love to have men in our company. It's been an issue, but they somehow are not so attracted to us for some odd reason. We celebrated the incredible feminine power in this show, and the critics were somewhat spirited about us only having women on stage, but I'm very proud of the fact that we had very powerful women on stage. But I have to say that the competitive market has encouraged us to innovate. And again, our elders are so thrilled that we are in Los Angeles, that we go to Brazil, that we bring them to Los Angeles, that there's this deep connection to their knowledge and to this particular culture, and that in Los Angeles, we have this incredible possibility to create all kinds of work that continues to be Afro-Brazilian for us. Okay.
I definitely agree with you on the market and how it makes you rethink, reimagine, reinvent, be creative, find new ways. I think when we started the company in 1994, I don't know that we set out to be innovative. I think we were a bit naive at the time. First of all, we didn't start off to start a company. We just wanted to bring together, we wanted to explore. And I think we were so curious. We had been this is Desmond Richardson and myself, we had been in the Ailey company for 7 and 8 years. And we felt like we had done so much, gone so many places, worked with so many people, had so many great experiences, but we knew there was more out there for us. We also were, I was, hot and heavy, ready to create and choreograph. I had been bitten by the choreography bug for sure. Once again, by that time I knew what the word meant. And so at that moment, when we basically just brought together our friends from all the sort of major companies around, and it was supposed to be a project. And we just said, let's get our favorite people that we respect, and there were very contemporary dancers, there were hip-hop dancers, there were people who could just improv, there were certainly ballet dancers, modern dancers, there were just all kinds of things. And so it became innovative because the notion at that time, no one was putting together a ballerina from ABT next to an Ailey dancer. It just wasn't really happening. And people would have never had and they were being created, original work was being created for them together. So something happened in the studio, something happened on the floor as that all was being put together. And I think that was innovative, if we can use that word. I know you don't like that word, but
Well, that's okay, but
yeah.
you can like it. That's
Yeah,
fine.
you know what I mean? I think that was, for that time, that was something new for people to experience. And so when we had the first show, that is what was being responded to. The fact that these worlds were being mixed up. And I didn't really even ever think about, and honestly, I'll finish that sentence in a minute, but actually, the rehearsal process was so amazing. Now, it could have gone two, 3 different ways. It could have been awful, you know. They could have all been standing in their corners because they were from all different worlds. It wasn't like that at all. The hip-hop dancer, and I was like, guys, we got to rehearse. The hip-hop dancer ended up performing for a lot of the classical dancers, and then the classical dancers, the hip-hop dancers were like looking at, well, what is she doing with her leg? And oh my God, like there was this, what's the word? That we were all just inspired by one another because we were all so different. And I happened to be the manager of all of this, trying to make it all come together and make an evening. And the evening came together beautifully. So it became about, we realized that this is really what we were about. We were kind of about blurred lines, you know, of the forms. We really respect, and when I educate young dancers, I believe in studying pure forms. Let me start there. I really do believe in studying pure forms. I don't want to be, too rigid about that, but I really do. Because that it gives you the tools to go wherever you want. Yeah, training is to liberate. It's not to bound you up, but you need to take a class in some technique, somehow. So anyway, I digress again. But what I'm saying is that this became all about the fusion and the beauty of that. So for me, the innovation was in the notion of bringing together and maybe having the gall to do it in a public forum. There were many people who, when Complexions came about, they responded in an amazing way, and I almost didn't know how to take that. I didn't know how to handle it. They were embracing it in a beautiful way, and I didn't expect it. In fact, I thought I might get more resistance. However, there wasn't much resistance at all. And that was what was encouraging to Desmond and I, and that's why we said in the tech rehearsal, the open tech rehearsal with an invited audience, we've got to do something with this thing. It's got to be more than a project, okay? You want to do it? You want to do it? Yeah. Okay, we're going to start a company. And that was because of what was happening before our eyes.
So we only have a couple more minutes for the panel before we open it up to Q&A. So this is going to be my last question to you all. But y'all have deep ties to Los Angeles. Dwight, you've worked here countless times, right? And all you lovely artists have been here for a long time. What makes this place a particularly fertile ground for creating? And what are the challenges you faced with LA as a community? That's the question. Not as a community, as a landscape, because it's varied terrain. Anyone?
Okay, I'll go again.
Yeah.
I think that only in LA, and I look at all the news and all the things that happen throughout the country, only in LA could could Floricanto have had the opportunity to do the things that we did in the early days that we did, and to have the type of collaborations. Eileen Cooley has been with us, I don't know, we've been around for 40 years, maybe you've been with us for about 20 of those 40 years, something like that. Only in LA, because in other places in the country, people are too set in neighborhoods and things like that, from what I have been able to see when I go to these other places. And Eileen's work with us transformed our work from great community folklorico to a great theater piece, because that's what lighting does. A lot of those things. Linda Cavaroli was our agent for many years also, and only in LA could you have those kind of communications outside of your barrio, because LA allows you to do that kind of thing. Because it's LA also, as we are moving now for the younger generation, all that, those things are no longer happening, I don't think. The freeways are getting harder to navigate and to get from one place to the other. If you have a performance in UCLA and you live in Pasadena, only if you want to make a 2-day trek will you dare to go to that side of the world. And so there's a lot of stuff you don't see, and vice versa. And that has meant that the friendships that we have here would not happen today. I thought it was very brave of you to come and bring us and ask, because you didn't know what the heck we were going to say. Because therefore the DRC becomes all the more important, because it hasn't happened in a long, long time. Lula said, let's applaud for Bela Lewitsky. What happens in a town where you don't recognize your elders is that you are born for the first time and you are the first one and the only one. And so therefore you don't benefit from your past in order to go into your future. That is very much, I think, the challenge for LA for the future.
Thank you.
I have to, piggyback on that. The more freeways, the more we're just disconnected now in a way that we weren't before. And it is because of the millions of people that want to be in sunny California, and then all the traffic and all of that. But it also creates for communities that are a little bit, dance communities and folks that are a little bit more isolated. And again, it goes back to getting out to see each other whenever and however we can, making our presence known to each other however we can. And we have a lot of things to make that happen now, more so than what we did before, than the telephone or getting in our car to drive. So there are other ways for us to communicate and stay visible. But the visibility among our peers is lacking. But LA, saying all that, is a great place to be, because it leaves room for you to be who you are, more so than maybe some other places. And I agree that if I had have started someplace else, I don't know if I would have had all the opportunities that my company has had being here in LA. Because when I was thinking about that question you were talking, we have been a part of so many major first dance events here in the city. Major first dance events in the city. And that's only because we were here. That's only because people saw us and knew of us then in a way that they perhaps maybe don't know of us now, would recommend us for things. It was Bela Lewitsky that recommended us for the Olympic Arts Festival that was here. It was Bela Lewitsky that recommended me to do The Little Mermaid. It was her and her mentoring, and it was the DRC at that time. And I have to confess, I don't know what's really going on with DRC right now, but I'm just telling you, in the very beginnings, how it was. We would gather in Betty Impey's home, and we would sit on the floor, and we would do the mass mailings, and we would sit and talk, and there was much more camaraderie. And I would like to see that again, and I'm sure it is. Maybe I'm just extremely too busy to be a part of it, but the hierarchy.
Now we gather at coffee shops. Now we gather at coffee shops, not in homes. But
it just seems like there are so many new people in the dance world that do what Gema says, think, well, oh, there's nobody else here but me. I must be the one. And I think that's the downside of it. But in recognizing that, what I would say to the younger artists is that let's explore where you are and who's there with you, and know who your dance neighbor is and where they're located. Ask them what they're doing and how they did. I mean, I get so many people to come to me to know how to start their dance studio. That's okay. I'm going to give you some information, but I'm not going to do it for you. I can tell you how to do it, but I'm not going to do all the work. I mean, Erwin gets bombarded all the time about, can you help me with this grant? Yeah, he's going to help you with it, but he's not going to write it for you. So those are the things that you have to understand. But people that have gone up the path, and still going up the hill, and there are other people coming there, we should all be friends as we make this journey, and we should all recognize that none of us could be here without the existence of someone before us. And recognize that. I mean, like Gloria Newman. I mean, I danced in Gloria Newman's dance company, and she was another major force here. So we should not forget the powers that were already here. And like Alvin Ailey started here, he started here, and Lester Horton started here, and we have a lot of major dance folks that have started here. But the sad thing is, and I'm sorry, I hope you don't get mad if I say it, is that we always end up talking to the choir. So I would love to see this be on television. I would love to see this go out to So You Think You Can Dance on the masses, so we could have that kind of conversation, so people could really see this side of the art, this side of the dance. So this is where those phenomenal kids that get up and say they're auditioning for, so they came from my company, from her company, from his company. They're coming to do those things, which they should, because that's where they can maybe get their fame. We're getting our fame. For me, it's not about being on those shows. I already have what my heart wants me to have, and I'm happy with it, and that's the thing. We all have to be happy with where we're going and know where we're going, and be happy with that. But knowing that the generations that we're building, it's our obligation to give them the information. Whether they're going to be a dancer or not, they need to know the history. We teach that in our studio to our littlest ones on up. The history, Yeah. And the beautiful thing with Viva Brazil and Linda, when she gets these great artists and they come to my studio, she offers a class. Guess what? All those kids that would never, ever experience an artist that she's bringing gets to experience that. And so you have to build the links, and you have to hold the links tighter together. And what about housing? And what about the health condition of our dance community? Do you know? Everybody doesn't have a 9 to 5, the other job, and then they come to dance. Well, our job is dance. I mean, I'm sure your job is dance all day. My job is dance all day. Gema's job, our job is dance all day. So we don't have a 9 to 5 and then the job. This is our job. And what we want, part of our great joy is that your dancers have the same thing that a person that works in an office have. What do they have? They have insurance, they have stability, financial stability, and so that's what we want for the entire dance community. So we want to uplift it, and I think that's what we are all about, uplifting our community. And again, it's like they say in my church, I need you, you need me. Do you understand? You need these artists up here. They need you to fill the seats. When you come to see a show, don't bring just yourself. Bring 10 people with you. Seriously, bring 10 people with you. So that's what we're building our community. We're exposing our community, and expanding our community. I mean, I'm waiting for the march to Washington. I'm waiting for that day. I'm waiting for the march to City Hall. We've done some great things with Arts for LA, but the dance community itself, we still have a long way to go, but I think our spirits and souls are willing to do the work. But, is it DRC that's going to take the banner? is it LA Arts that's going to take the, I'm asking a question, who's taking the banner? Because we're busy dancing, you see. I used to have a message on my studio phone. When it rings, we're not there. Oh, you've reached Little Washington Dance Theater. We're busy dancing. And so we are. And this is what we do. And so when people say, well, you know, you don't need this or you don't need that, yes, we still need it. When people say that you have too much, no, you never have too much in the arts. And one thing that Alvin Ailey always said, that building a dance company is one of the most hardest, most difficult things you can do here in LA. But it can happen if you have the hard work. And he also said it's constant fundraising. And that's what people need to know. And what I've learned is take every opportunity to say, I'm a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and you could write a donation to us at any time that you would like to.
Right on.
And I don't feel bad about saying it, because in the old days, we would feel almost ashamed.
I'm still working on that.
We would feel almost ashamed to ask for money, you know, to know that we have to go and ask, you know, and you're asking for such a little bit. And so we still, you know, our community still feels that. But it's good to see so many that still want to dance. And I think that's because of what's happening at the Ford. It's very nice and encouraging. And Deborah Bacchus does this wonderful thing that gets people out to see her performances. So we need more opportunities to have these informal gatherings and conversations about what the art of dance needs to have. Is this going to be on TV? Seriously?
You can get the link, she said.
Oh, you have to send a link. I missed that part. Okay, make sure I get the link. I want to forward it to a lot of people because it doesn't do any good for the choir. Choir knows this, right? Yeah.
So there's no doubt that one of Viver Brasil's challenges, and I think it's the dance community's challenges, is that we're incredibly undercapitalized, and we all know that. And I think, and I agree, that we are an incredible force, that we need to go see each other's work more often. Forget that we've got a traffic jam. You just have to go out and see the work and be supportive. And I think that we don't do that enough, that we're not going to see each other's work enough. And I think that that is a charge that I would like to make tonight, that we really have to go out and see each other's work. But I'm very proud to live in Los Angeles because I do believe that we are now the epicenter of Afro-Brazilian dance in the United States, and it could only have happened here in Los Angeles for many reasons. And I'm also very proud that one of our teachers and elders, Dona Cici, said that only Viver Brasil could be so innovative with Afro-Brazilian dance, with live music, and again, I'm very proud to be in a city that has allowed us to develop this incredible body of work, and we're still sometimes trying to figure it out, which is very exciting, but there's space here for us to be incredibly creative. I would love to have more capital, and I agree with Lula, do not be shy to ask, because we need everyone to dig deep into our pockets, to everyone's pockets, so that we can continue creating the great work that we do. But Los Angeles really is incredibly brilliant that way. And we've got to be able to perform more than one time at a venue. It just can't be. I mean, it's so incredible to say that we've performed for 10 seasons at the Ford, but I would like to say I performed for 10 seasons at the Ford, and we did it for 2 nights, and there were full houses. Or I would like to perform at a festival where there's only 99 seats. That's fine too, but that we can do it multiple times. This is a problem in Los Angeles, that we do not perform enough, and I think that's where sometimes inconsistency lies in artistic excellence, because we don't have the opportunity to perform our work more often. So I think that's a huge challenge. And I think that, Shayna, we are going to charge you as the young executive director of the DRC to turn things around, because I think that you can do it. I think you have a very articulate vision about how we need to move across borders and boundaries in Los Angeles, and I think the DRC can be a force
Thank you.
to make things happen in this town, and we're depending on you. We really are.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Linda.
Let's not forget the clap.
I'm not sure that I can conclusively speak completely on the landscape of Los Angeles, exactly because we don't reside here. However, it is not a secret that Complexions has an affinity for Los Angeles, and we're an organization that really seeks to be a bi-coastal organization. We've been presented here many times in many venues, over at the Music Center in the Amundsen and Dorothy Chandler. We've been to the Luckman way back when. We're here at the Ford this weekend. Desmond and myself have worked in this community as teachers. Of course, we've done some television here and all of that. One of the things that I find, I'll tell you what I find attractive about Los Angeles. Okay, the weather. When we get past that. No, honestly though, I was just being silly, but really the arts themselves here, I feel as though there's a lot of, how do I say this? I want to say untapped connections. I meet so many wonderful people. Right before this show, I met Laura from Invertigo. Very warm, welcoming. I've known Lula for a very long time, always warm and welcoming. I'm happy to meet both of you tonight too. And one of the things that I feel that's happening in this community is I can only speak from my feelings when I'm here, because I'm more or less a visitor, right? Who brings my work into the community. I feel connected to what's happening here. I also think that what our company does connects into this community because we're not afraid to entertain. And even though we're a concert dance company, this community has a sense of, this is the entertainment, television, film capital of the world. And I feel an affinity towards that part of it. So when Desmond and I said we'd like to be a bi-coastal organization, we both knew exactly what we were talking about. I mean, it could have been any coast. But we knew right away that Los Angeles was it. Now, we do have a group of supporters here. We do have an audience here, I think. But I see that the challenges that you've all mentioned about how spread out we are here in Los Angeles and how to get from one place to another. I experience it when I'm here, which is, you know, a few times a year. But there's still something that happens in this community that I don't think, that is unlike New York in many ways. New York is, you know, there's 300 million trillion dance companies under one roof, and everything's very close, and you kind of have your pockets. Here, I think there's just connections yet to be made still, as you've all been saying. And I hear that as a need within the dance community. And, you know, I think I like to be another bridge in the community. And I think that whatever is happening, I know that you're saying that you want more of that to happen within this community, and it needs to happen more than this, because I look to you because you've been here, you've done it.
Right.
All of you, you've been here and you've done it here in this community. So, I don't know, I think that Los Angeles is a very ripe and rich culturally, so I'm certainly attracted to all that diversity, number one, I think.
Great.
That's exciting to me.
So it's actually 8:39. So I'm actually going to open it up to the audience for Q&A. We've kind of gone a little bit over, and we have Camille with a microphone. She's going to pass it around to anyone who has a question. But take a second, look at your notes, and see if you have a burning issue you'd like to raise.
And we do ask that if you have a question, you only ask it once you have the mic.
Yes. Making it, making her travel.
The mic. I'm curious, this question for all of you. In this disconnected city that's so many so separated by traffic, if nothing else, and distance, and in a time when the economic pressures for your average person are such that it's difficult to find any free time. I personally feel like that affects how many people go to see live performances of any kind, and absolutely live performances of dance. So I feel that, and maybe that's just my personal perception, but that it is a challenge to get people to come see live dance performance, and that it's becoming more and more and more so the more that there is Netflix that you can have at home, or 1,000 channels on the TV, or you have to work 2 jobs, and the 1 hour, that 1 evening you have off, you prefer to stay home and cook and sleep. I'm just curious about each of your perception of that issue, and or what you do as a company or as an artist to try to combat that.
She's talking about audience development? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I really have relied always on my connection to the community I represent. I think that there's always other audiences that you can appeal to, and as you move along in your trajectory, your name will attract those people that want to see what else, but you should never forget where your community is, whatever that is. And you should really never let them forget that you are an artist who needs support. So it's not asking them to come and say, hey, I'm doing this thing, get here. Because they are the support that you need to thrust yourself into the next level and the next level. And I live by that.
I would have to say, building your audience now can start with anyone from any age. I say that because if you want to inspire a future generation of people that are going to love the art of dance, it needs to start at 3 years old. And they need to love that dance class, so they beg their mama, grandma, whoever, to get them there. So you plant the seed, and you make these experiences every time they come, whatever age it is, such a wonderful experience that they will never forget it, and they will come back, and they will come back, and they will come back, and they will come back. So it's like what Gema is saying, you are building, you are planting the seeds, and now you got to watch it grow, but you have to tend to the garden. You know what I'm saying? You have to tend to the garden. In terms of tending to the garden, you have to also realize that you're only one person, and you are the light, and the flame cannot go out. So when you diminish the flame, then you no longer are existing. So in saying that, you have to tend to yourself. And I always have to tell different younger people that who are passionate, you should be passionate, but you should not be deliriously passionate, not going to sleep and not taking care of yourself, because then your gift is being wasted. So you have to find time for everything. It's okay if you can't go to everything. Do what you can do I love this phrase, do what you can do in the time that you have to do it in. That's from Lord of the Rings. I always watch the movie to hear that phrase. Really. Because it's so meaningful when I think about all the things that I have to do in the day. Or if you've worn yourself so thin that all you can do is go home and sleep. Guess what? Go home and sleep. Get that rest, nourish yourself, because once your flame is out, there's nobody that's going to rekindle it. You have to keep yourself lit. You have to keep that flame going. Otherwise, it's going to stop. And you have to, it's okay if you don't make every show. I don't never make every show. I mean, I want to make every show in my spirit. I be thinking I'm going to make it. But at some point along the way, you're going to make it there. And you're going to encounter whoever or whatever it was that you wanted to see in some form or another. But how you encounter them with an embrace or with, oh child, you know what I'm saying, is how we encounter with each other is what is going to also help to sustain you. So in saying that, we need to start with the kids. Understand what I'm saying? Because those are our future generations. We have people in my studio now that started with me when they were 3 years old, and now they work at the studio. studio managers. They've grown up in the studio. When I had one building, I don't know if you ever came to my studio on Pico, but I only had one building and I only had me because we couldn't afford a whole lot of teachers. We couldn't afford a receptionist. We were asking for it in funding, but people didn't believe that you really needed to have that. But anyway, so what did I do? Well, that was something I think was innovative, now you want to think about it. I trained the students to answer the telephone, to take a message. I trained them to do that. They got so good they would fight over the opportunity to have that job. So you start by planting the seeds and you look within your community or your group that you have for those that have a talent for certain things. And you help to mold and shape and develop them and give them little leadership opportunities. Like right now, I have 3 or 4 different groups. I don't have to go. There was a time I had to go. I don't have to go. You know, I have Tamika that can go, I have Rashada that can go, I have different parents that we train to go. This is what you say, this is how you act, this is how you represent us. This is what you look for on the stage, this is what you ask for. Kids become the spokespersons for the organization. Don't forget to say about this show. We have to start cultivating them. So now, and then when we get free tickets, we don't just give them to adults, we give them to the parents of kids that are interested in dance. They go and their parents go, so they'll critique a show. And I'm like, don't be so hard on them, give them a break. But they will critique a show because they've seen so many different types of shows. And so that's what I want. I want to cultivate a body and a community of people that will grow up loving dance. And so when they get back and they come home from holiday break, where are they gonna come? Right to the studio. Can I be in the Kwanzaa show this year? I can't wait to get back. That's what it should be. And then through that cultivation, we had our whole computer system set up by a young man who used to come sit in the studio, watch his sisters, 2 sisters take class, mope around the studio. He didn't want to take no dance class because he was a boy and he wasn't doing that. But he would just be silent watching. He went to school, got his degree in computer technology, whatever, came back. We moved on Crenshaw. He set up this whole thing. I was like, I thought you didn't like dance. He said, yeah, but Miss Lula, I wanted to do something for you. Okay. He set it all up for us, you know what I'm saying? So you never know who you're touching. You never know who's in your midst that's watching you. And, you know, they might be the shyest person there, but they are looking, you know. So I say, you know, even though we have other generations of people, if we're building our community, it's a long time, but still.
You know, those of us who are fortunate enough to have classes that we offer for our community, one of the problems that all dance companies have is the lack of male presence for whatever reason. In the Latino community, you have to get the kids before soccer does, because after that, it's a lost cause. ¿Sí o no? Okay, so we realized that about 10 years ago, we began what we call the Floricanto Institute, and we had one of our male dancers be the teacher. For the first time in the history of Floricanto, I have more male dancers than female dancers. And of course, it took 10 years to build that. But so if it is at all possible to give to your community in that way, to create a little school of some sort where you give back in that way, it pays back in so many ways I can't even say. Lula just mentioned, I'm telling you, I have male dancers for you and for you.
And we started this year, we started an all-boys intensive summer program, but we hooked them through the concept of it's dance and sports. And so not only did they get to dance, they learned how to improve their little basketball skills. I bought a hoop and everything, so they got to improve their basketball skills. But what I learned from watching them with their basketball guy that was working with them is that actually what they're doing actually dance steps. You know, they're doing the grapevine, they're doing dance steps. They just don't know what it is. And so I'm saying, well, we do that in dance class. And so we're seeing how to integrate that, and then in seeing that, so we're reaching into the sports world. So now there's another opportunity to draw sports into the dance world, because now every sports needs somebody to stretch them because their coaches don't know what they're doing. So there are opportunities there. It's how far can you spread yourself? How much do you want to do? And so now we have boys that are dancing and they love tap, of course. And we look for things that they're going to love that's just for them, and then you get them hooked and they keep coming back. Even my grandsons, are we going to do the show? I'm like, I thought you didn't want to dance. Yeah, but we like to do that stepping class, and we like to do tap. Okay, well, now they're choreographing, really. Choreographing their own little numbers, and allow them to be creative for everybody. Even our most senior person is dancing, giving back. We have a senior citizen, senior. I don't like to say seniors, I like to say seasoned. They're dancing, And so then we try to pull them into, oh, have you ever been to a modern dance concert before? Wouldn't you and your friends like to get together and come to see this show? It's going to be great. Oh, yes, that may be interesting. But there are things, too, that we have to deal with their culture, time. And for our culture, we might have to look at changing the times of our shows, Why do we always have to have a show at 8 o'clock or at 8:30? Why can't we have a show at 2 o'clock on Saturday? Or, yes, we're competing with other things, but for some of the communities or the bodies of people that we want to have, that may be the most time that they want to come out and feel safe. Mm-hmm. So there are lots of things that we have to look at when we're trying to build that audience and build that culture and build a sense of community.
If anyone else wants to answer that question, do you want to?
I think it's really important when we do have concerts that we tell our audience members how grateful we are that they have come to the show. I think people really need to be told that they're doing a very important, civic duty, by coming to a concert and buying a ticket and so forth. We depend a lot on our our community as well. And I think that as we move into the 16th year, it's really important that we empower our own company members who are now becoming directors of education and community engagement. I'm proud to say that I'm in my 15th year, and I see my colleagues here that are in their 40th, 30th, 20th year, and I'm thinking to myself, I know I can do this. And I will learn from how they have created this incredible legacy, because I have so much more to learn. But again, I think it's really important that at every step of the way we tell our students and our community and our audience members how important they are to our art. I think they need to hear that. But I also think too that this past year has been an important growing year for our company in terms of how the company members are taking on very important roles to continue the legacy.
I'll be brief. I think it also comes down to, now this is, I hope this doesn't sound too obvious, it comes down to making sure that we're telling the stories that matter to the young generation. Because they're our future audience. I think it comes down to, I have 3 summer programs that run in 3 different cities around the country, and the young people come back, and the program has grown incredibly over the last few years. And one of the things that is happening is we're passing down information. And I think that that's a really important point. But then also to get people to come to the theater, I think it's about interesting collaborations, new perspectives. I think it's really important that we don't forget that we can take some chances, because that's the true spirit of what great art is that we can also do things that aren't comfortable, that challenge our ideas and our perspectives. And I think that brings people in, because, you put, this artist, I'm talking about music, interesting music with dance, interesting dance with a literary artist. There's a lot of ways of bringing people to the theater that has to get turned on. You got to get them in there, and once they see your work, maybe it's a guitarist that they're in love with, but what? He's playing where? Doing what? With who? Okay, well, I'm going to see him. And then they're, butts are in the seats. They get to be turned on by what you're doing, and it's an interesting collaboration, and there's usually life after that, for those relationships. So I think it comes down to also being creative and not losing the ideas, not losing our edge, and not being afraid to try new things. Some of the people that are in the places that make the decisions about what gets presented where sometimes are afraid. But the economy makes us that way.
Yes.
Everything has to be safe and a surefire hit.
Say that word again, the surefire hit.
A
Where's the hit
surefire
for
hit.
the night? Forget,
Yeah.
it's not a hit, it's art, it's show.
But so yeah, a lot of those things, that's where we are being challenged right now. You spoke of how sometimes it's even hard for you to, get out and get to a live performance because you're busy and you're working and you're doing your thing and you've got to. So I just think that focus on the idea of, I'm talking about the art form, not you. Do you know what I mean? We have to not lose sight of what makes great art, which is just edge, courage, dreams.
Great.
That was one of the things that Bella would always say. She was a wonderful mentor, and she would say to me, do your work. Do your work. Do your vision. And it doesn't matter what anyone else says about it. Be true to yourself in your work. And as long as you do that, you will prevail.
It's certainly difficult
You
sometimes.
know, it is hard. It's difficult. We're not saying that. But so it is difficult. But the other thing that I would like to just quickly just say on this is that, there's still so many people, and I'm sorry, I came from a place where I never saw a dance concert until my teacher took me to UCLA. And that saddens me deeply, because I know the power of dance and the power of art that changes the lives of so many people. So many young people's lives can be changed. It doesn't matter if they're going to be a dancer or not, but they may be changed and touched in a way, and inspired and motivated. And that's the power of art, whether it's dance, music, theater, whatever. There needs to be more opportunities for kids from all walks of life, all economic backgrounds, to be able to come to a real theater, to understand how to be at a theater, to understand how to come and see a show. And there's not. And so our challenge to our great city of Los Angeles is, and our funders, is give dollars to put kids in seats. Some kids never go outside of their Watts community. They don't even go to Venice Beach. They can't get there. But to see something or be in a dance class, to put a smile on their face, is just as rewarding as having I won't say a meal, but kids should be smiling. They should be able to participate in the arts. And all that's taken away when there's no dollars, when there's not. And then we as artists, we can give and give all we want to, but still we can't put ourselves in the poorhouse too, But some of us will, but still, how are we servicing? How are we as artists giving back to these communities that don't have it? I always say everybody in my school is on scholarship. Do you know what I'm saying? Some people don't pay anything. Some people's families are homeless, but rather than turn their talented young lady away, I say, okay, that's all right. We'll try to find a way to make it happen. Keep them off the street, give them something to do. And so that's the challenge. That's the challenge. And so when it comes to disaster, we already know that we as artists are not relevant. That's what they told us when there was a 1984 Northridge earthquake. So we had to prove how relevant are you, why do you deserve to have your building rebuilt? And we say we're important, we're doing important work in the community. So then, but if you haven't been doing that work all along, you don't have no proof. So all along your journey to get to where you're going, develop those relationships. Give what you're going to give. provide the places. She's providing places. So if God forbid, an earthquake came and knocked her building down, we would all be rallying, saying, yeah, but Hema gives this and Hema taught this, and, because that's what we would have to be doing. But if we're not doing that, what are we doing? What are we doing? She's giving back. She's bringing artists here. He's giving back through his summer workshops in the various different places. We're giving back in our community. We even got a shower at my studio. I didn't even know. I forgot we had a shower there. I didn't realize that some people that didn't have a home to go to, they came in and used the shower. So you don't know what you mean to people. We didn't know what we meant to our community until the earthquake. And this man who was, actually I'm gonna tell this story, I'm gonna shut up. He was he was always drunk, literally, wino. And we always take these people for granted. We don't know their stories until we talk to them. It turned out that he had been a dancer on Soul Train, but he was also an artist. And when my building, this was when the Rodney King riots happened. Everybody was putting signs in the building, black-owned business, and all that kind of stuff. He came and he painted an oasis. He said, can I paint something on your wall? And I said, well, do you really paint? He said, yeah, Ms. Washington, I can paint. I said, oh, okay, go on, give him something to do and not be in front of my studio, be on the side painting something. And I went over there and I was like, why did you paint this on the wall? He said, because that's what you are to me. You're an oasis. A palm tree, sunshine, and sand. He said, that's what you are. That's what your studio is. And, it was very meaningful that he put that, and it stayed on there until the building was torn down. But because we were giving so much in the community, so many people knew of what we were doing. So they were able to say to the senators and people that were saying, they don't get no money because they're an arts institution and they're irrelevant and we need only essential funding for essential things. And people say, no, this is irrelevant, this is important in our communities. So when you're building community, you have to look at the different levels of community that you have to build and the support that you have to build to say, this is why she needs to have that. This is why she needs to have that. This is why he needs to have that. This is why she needs to have that. This is why we need to have some money. So this is why all the funders need to give us all some money. Still.
And on that note. Yeah, so we're at 9:03, so we're gonna have to wrap up the discussion, but I just wanna thank everyone so much for your insights and presence here on the stage, and for your great questions, and I'm sure there are many more, so thank you all. Thank you.